My son Evan once told me flat out, "Dad, please don't hang around my friends. You'll embarrass me." It wasn't said cruelly, exactly, just fast, defensive, like a pilot pulling up before impact. It landed harder than any scolding ever could. The words echoed long after the door shut behind him that afternoon. I had driven him and 2 baseball teammates home from practice, just like I'd done when they were 10. But now they were 22, shiny-eyed college graduates with fresher sneakers and lighter respect. Evan's face had tightened when I joked about music from my generation. His friends had laughed politely. The moment simmered into discomfort, then this. "Dad, maybe don't try so hard next time, yeah? My friends aren't really your crowd." He said it like boundaries, not cruelty, but still, it was a small sentence that drew a canyon between us. I remember looking at him in the side mirror that evening, watching how his reflection looked almost like mine used to. Shoulders sharp, eyes chasing approval. He disappeared into his apartment near downtown Denver, a place he could barely afford, but shared with 2 friends, Carter and Jonah. Both of them had greeted me with, "Hey, Mr. Laird," that half-warm, half-awkward tone younger people use with someone they think is irrelevant but want to stay polite toward. I drove home with the radio off. The streets reflected sunset light like burned copper. 40 minutes later, my modest house, 2 bedrooms, 1 lawnmower older than my marriage, waited patiently. Inside, the quiet creaked the floors like sore joints. I'm not poor. I'm not flashy either. For 28 years, I've run Arbor Works, a local landscaping company that grew from 1 rusted pickup to 5 trucks and 24 employees. We're not some startup darling, but we pay people fairly, keep schools green, and pull weeds in the sweltering sun so others can picnic without thinking about where the shade came from. But here's the funny thing. In an age of software and crypto success stories, a man who works with trees gets treated like one, rooted in place, silent, mostly ignored. Evan grew up comfortable, but not spoiled. I thought that counted for something. Maybe I was wrong. The week Evan put that distance between us, I poured longer hours into the company, half to escape my thoughts. My foreman, Rosa, noticed. She said, "Boss, you trimming your feelings again?" And laughed her big, contagious laugh. "Something like that," I told her. On Friday, our community contracts renewed. City councils, small universities, and a swanky new project just approved in Tech Square. An area thick with gleaming office buildings and smoothie bars priced higher than steak. I'd bid aggressively and won. It would keep my crew busy all year. That very night, Evan called me for the first time in weeks. His voice carried a shaky bravado. "Hey, Dad, remember my friends Carter and Jonah?" "How could I forget?" I said, trying to sound light. "Well, they're looking for jobs." Pause. Interesting. "What kind of jobs?" "Business internships, management stuff. Jonah's dad's company froze hiring. Carter's interviews fell through. They just need something for the summer. You still know people, right?" I nearly smiled. "Still know people? Son, I employ people, but I didn't say that." I said I might. "Why?" "They figured maybe you could help network them somewhere. You know, you're connected." There was that word again. Connected, as if I were some old extension cord in the garage. "Tell them to swing by this week," I said simply. "We'll talk." The silence on the other line stretched, surprised. "Wait, seriously? At your landscaping company?" "That's the one." They thought maybe you'd know office openings." "We have offices?" I replied. "A computer, a coffee maker, even a chair." Evan sighed faintly through his nose. "All right, I'll let them know." Saturday arrived bragging with sunlight. Dew glistened on the lawns, the kind of morning that makes you forget your disappointments for at least 2 hours. Around 10, a black car rolled into my gravel lot. Out stepped Carter and Jonah, pressed polo shirts, glinting watches, hair so sculpted even the wind respected boundaries. They didn't look like men who'd ever shoveled dirt, but desperation introduces people to new footwear. "Mr. Laird!" Carter greeted me with that same superficial brightness. "Pleasure to see you again." Jonah nodded beside him, eyes scanning the trucks. "So this is your, operation?" "That's right," I said. "Big operation for a small city." They exchanged glances, half civil. Inside my cramped office, sunlight cut across plans and invoices pinned to corkboards. The air smelled faintly of soil and printer ink. I gestured for them to sit. "So," I began, leaning back, "you're looking for work. What exactly are you hoping to do?" Carter started, hands folded like in an interview. "We majored in business analytics and marketing. Mostly we're looking for something managerial. Project coordination, data, client relations, the strategic side." Jonah added quickly, "We're not afraid of work, sir. Just want to apply our skills." And we figured experience, even if it's not glamorous, still counts. Even if it's not glamorous. The phrasing hung between us like exhaust. "Well," I said, pretending to ponder, "landscaping is coordination. Lots of moving pieces, machinery schedules, budgeting. We work with government and private partners, manage multiple contracts." Their attention sharpened slightly. Carter leaned forward. "So, like operations management?" "Exactly. You'd start by understanding field logistics." Jonah nodded eagerly. "What would that involve?" "Riding with the crews, learning timing, estimating materials, and occasionally helping load mulch." Carter blinked. "Load mulch?" I smiled. "A humble start. But you'll learn what real coordination feels like when the weather, the wind, and 24 personalities disagree simultaneously." I could smell the polite panic. "Pays fair, schedules early, learning potential, massive," I continued smoothly. "Are you interested?" Jonah opened his mouth, hesitated, glanced at Carter. Carter's jaw tightened an invisible notch. "We'll think about it." "Of course," I said warmly. "Opportunities like sunrise. It doesn't wait, but it keeps coming if you know where to look." They left half an hour later, their sneakers dusty, expressions confused. That evening, Evan called again. "Dad, what did you say to them?" Quote, "Offered them work." "Doing what, exactly?" "Learning management from the ground up." He groaned audibly. "Dad, they wanted something professional." "I offered them something real," I replied. "They'll learn leadership from soil level." "That's more professional than any spreadsheet." "Come on," he muttered. "You know that's not what they meant." I did know, but some lessons refused to be delivered in comfortable packaging. Monday morning, clouds gathered low, our trucks rumbled to life, engines coughing awake. To my mild astonishment, both Carter and Jonah showed up. Jeans, work boots, cheap gloves still creased from packaging. Maybe curiosity, maybe pride's last stand. Who knows? Rosa grinned from under her sun hat. "New recruits, boss?" "Management trainees," I said. She laughed so loud the sparrows scattered from the fence. We started them simple. Raking leaves, hauling soil, hauling themselves out of bed before dawn. Within 2 hours, the polish on their optimism began flaking like cheap paint. I watched quietly from a distance, checking invoices, occasionally offering mentoring disguised as conversation. "Son?" I told Jonah, "Every number you'll ever crunch in business hides a person's sweat behind it. Learn that first, you'll never need HR to teach you empathy." He glanced up, unsure if I was serious. He would learn. By noon, Carter straightened, coated in specks of dust, phone vibrating endlessly in his pocket. "Sir, quick break?" "Of course," I said. "The trees aren't racing you." He sank onto the curb, scrolling furiously, face flushing. No service. Our site near the reservoir had patchy signal. It's amazing how silence reveals self-worth when Wi-Fi disappears. That first week, they lasted barely through Friday. But something, perhaps exhaustion that felt strangely useful, brought them back next Monday. And again. Slowly, they stopped flinching at dirt under fingernails, started noticing patterns, where the water runoff collected, how supply chains hiccuped, how one delayed delivery could ripple through a dozen contracts. By the third week, I caught Carter sketching a logistics chart on scrap cardboard. He looked almost proud before remembering to hide it. Jonah volunteered to coordinate trucks with Rosa. I pretended not to overhear her mutter, "About time." Around that same time, Evan visited. He spotted his friends loading equipment and froze like a deer among lawnmowers. "Dad, are they working here?" "Sure are," I said, wiping dust off my gloves. He walked right up to Carter, disbelief tightening his voice. "You're seriously doing this? For my dad?" Carter looked up, sweat painting his cheeks. Yeah, it's actually not bad. Evan's disbelief sprinted toward irritation. You could have told me. They're learning, I said. Learning to rake leaves? Learning how leadership feels with dirt on it. He rolled his eyes, a reflex of youth allergic to humility. Whatever you're trying to prove. I'm not proving anything, Evan. Life is. He left without response. A week later, something shifted. Carter approached me timidly near the office. Mr. Laird, I've been updating your scheduling sheets. Hope you don't mind. I built a cloud tracker to sync tasks with fuel data. Thought it might help budgeting. I blinked, impressed. The spreadsheet screen glowed with clean formulas. You did this on your own? Yes, sir. And Jonah? He's mapping equipment depreciation rates. Said he wanted to understand long-term costs. I pretended nonchalance, but felt a quiet pride bloom like spring after drought. When Friday wrapped, I gathered everyone around the tailgate, as I always did, for weekly reflection. Good work, crew. You made the city cleaner, one blister at a time. Then I nodded toward Carter and Jonah. Our new trainees built systems that'll make us faster and safer. Next week we implement. Applause, a mixture of claps and teasing cheers. The two young men blushed, then smiled. Driving home afterward, I thought about Evan's first words. Stay away from my friends. Funny how pride blinds before clarity arrives. That weekend, I received an email from Carter titled Appreciation. Mr. Laird, just wanted to say thanks for giving us a chance. I came in thinking lawn work was beneath me. I'm leaving this week knowing it taught me everything college forgot. Patience, teamwork, humility. P.S. I'd love your reference. I got shortlisted for a logistics coordinator role. I reread the note twice, smiling. 2 days later, Jonah requested a brief meeting. Sir, a company called Denver Urban Parks offered me operations support full-time. Said the experience here stood out. Good for you, I said sincerely. Now go make processes bloom like wildflowers. He laughed nervously. I will, sir. Both departed with handshakes that carried genuine respect. The rare kind forged in sweat, not small talk. That night, I was grilling chicken in the backyard when Evan arrived unexpectedly. He stood awkwardly at the fence until I waved him in. Dad, Carter told me everything, he said quietly. Everything? How you hired them, what you taught them, what they learned. He scratched his neck. They said working for you was the best crash course they've had. I flipped the chicken slowly. They learned fast. He laughed softly, almost ashamed. Guess I never realized what you actually do. I looked at him. The same shoulders, that mirror again, but softer now, less defensive. You see trees, maybe grass, I said. I see systems, schedules, growth patterns, soil reports, city politics, weather, human moods. Managing that takes everything between patience and prayer. He nodded slowly. I was embarrassed for the wrong reasons. It happens. We ate quietly, crickets stitching their own soundtrack. He set down his fork halfway. Dad, my startup group just lost a project manager. You'd probably out-organize all of us. Think you could stop by sometime, give us pointers? Sure, I said, smiling inside. Just promise not to introduce me as the guy who embarrasses you. He laughed for real this time. I didn't tell him yet, but the city had just approved our expansion contract into Tech Square. Yes, the very same district full of the friends who once thought landscaping was beneath management. Next week, their companies would sign my invoices. Sometimes life doesn't shout its ironies. It landscaping whispers them. The following Monday drilled sunlight into the windshield like truth itself. Harsh, irrefutable. The contract with Tech Square started at 6 a.m., and even the city cranes looked sleepy. My trucks pulled up between mirrored towers that rose like trophies to ambition. The scent was different here. Burnt espresso, new tires, and freshly minted dreams. Rosa barked orders with her usual joy, and half my crew scattered with leaf blowers and trimmers. I had barely parked when a silver SUV slid into the reserved lane. A man in a tailored jacket stepped out, holding a clipboard. I recognized him immediately. Bryce Helper, Senior Project Liaison for one of those startups whose logos glow on every billboard. We'd met only by email. Now, in person, he looked younger than his signature suggested. He shook my hand like someone who had just discovered manual work existed. "Mr. Laird? Appreciate you taking this on. City said you're the best." "Appreciate them having taste," I said with a smile. He laughed politely. As we walked the site, he talked about synergy between green spaces and brand identity. I nodded, half listening. Corporate jargon is just fertilizer. You spread it generously, hope something grows. Midway through the inspection, Rosa called me over. 2 extra helpers had arrived. I turned and almost laughed out loud. Evan stood there. Behind him, 2 other young people unloaded water hoses. My son wore slacks instead of jeans, a collared shirt that looked allergic to sweat, and an expression torn between duty and disbelief. "Morning," I said. He scratched his temple. "I brought my team. We're volunteering for the Tech Square cleanup initiative. Didn't realize the contractor was you." "Surprise," I said simply. Bryce's eyes flicked between us, realizing quickly the father-son dynamic. "You 2 know each other?" Quote. "Too well," Evan muttered. Then louder, "Small world." Bryce grinned. "Even better. Collaboration between generations? Love to see it." He drifted away to take a call. I handed Evan a pair of gloves. "Hope those fit?" He looked at them warily, then back at the manicured courtyard as if weighing pride against air conditioning. "I came to oversee community outreach, not landscape." Different verbs, similar blisters. I said, "Try one." He sighed, pulled them on, joined his teammates near the flower beds. Rosa winked at me. "Chip off the stubborn block." Watching him kneel by the soil was like watching a memory repeat, but with better posture. 10 minutes in, he wiped sweat off his forehead and met my eyes. I gave a mock salute and returned to unloading materials. By noon, the sun scolded everyone equally. His co-workers bailed early, citing meetings, but Evans stayed. Quietly. When the last mulch bag was emptied, he sat beside the fountain, panting. "That's harder than it looks," he admitted. "Everything honest is," I replied. He chuckled weakly. "Carter told me you made them do this day after day. And they thanked me afterward." He looked at his dirt-streaked palms. "Maybe I get it now." For a moment, the sound of water softened everything between us. Then his phone buzzed. He read it, frowned. "Our project bid just got rejected. They chose another vendor. Guess humility isn't the only lesson today." I studied him. Maybe not rejected, just redirected. He frowned but pocketed the phone. That afternoon, I headed to the Tech Square Administration Building to finalize signatures for the 3-month maintenance contract. Inside the sleek conference room, glass walls, chairs too comfortable to be honest, I noticed a familiar company logo on one of the proposal stacks, Nova Grid Solutions. Evans Startup. I flipped through it discreetly while waiting. Budget overshoots, unrealistic deadlines. They'd pitched enthusiasm, not logistics. No wonder the city passed. When Bryce returned with coffee, he pointed vaguely to the documents. "You'd be amazed how many firms promise miracles without understanding infrastructure. We needed someone grounded, literally." Grounded. There's poetry even in paperwork. Outside, I called Rosa to confirm crew schedules and noticed Evan standing by his car, frustration weighing his shoulders. I walked over. "You still have next quarter to prove yourselves," I said gently. He looked up, wary. "You saw?" "Accidentally." He exhaled. "We worked for 2 months on that bid." "Then use what you built. Reseed. Don't discard the soil." He gave a half smile. "You always have a metaphor." "I run a landscaping business. Metaphors are free mulch." That earned a small laugh. Progress measured in oxygen instead of pride. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other often at the site. His startup team managed volunteer events on weekdays. My crew trimmed, pruned, replaced irrigation lines. Sometimes he'd wander over, curious but pretending to check emails. Once I caught him timing delivery routes. "Studying or scrutinizing?" I teased. "Maybe both," he said. "Your operation runs smoother than most software teams I've seen." "Trees don't argue as much," I answered. One evening, while supervising the final segment of turf installation, I found Evan crouched beside a faulty sprinkler valve. "Mind if I look?" he asked. Be my guest. He fiddled with the wiring, recalibrated the pressure, and boom, the fountain dance resumed like applause. Rosa shouted, "Engineer alert!" I clapped his shoulder. Not bad for a spreadsheet guy. Guess those internships taught me something. Right, I grinned. But manual competence, that's transferable capital. He nodded, not mocking this time. Friday's sunset stretched long shadows across polished glass facades. The city inspector arrived, clipboard ready. I braced, as always, for the bureaucratic scavenger hunt of signatures. But instead, she smiled. Everything's impeccable, Mr. Laird. We're renewing your municipal certification through next year. Music to my ears. Bryce joined her. Also, management asked for a sustainability consultant to advise our partner companies. Your methods impressed them. I raised an eyebrow. Consultant? Part-time mentorship, workshops, the whole thought leadership thing, he said. Interested? Depends if they mind dirt under fingernails. I quipped. They laughed, handed me forms, and walked off. Evan lingered near the truck. Did you just get offered a consulting spot? So it seems. He hesitated, then said quietly, We were actually looking for someone exactly like that. I kept my face neutral. Were you? He explained. Our startup pivoted after we lost the bid. We're building eco-efficiency software for small contractors, water tracking, energy use dashboards. But we don't have field insight. Most clients don't trust a bunch of desk kids talking sustainability. They trust you. For a second, the irony nearly made me laugh out loud. My son, the same boy who once begged me not to embarrass him, now needed me to represent his credibility. So you want me to be what? Your advisor? Consulting partner, he said carefully. We'd pay, of course. Or if you'd rather, we share equity. We just need authenticity. I leaned against the tailgate, thinking. The air smelled of cut grass and possibility. Let me consider it, I said finally. I'll give you an answer Monday. He nodded, relief flickering. Thank you, Dad. When he drove off, I stood there a while, grinning at the absurdity. The same kids who once giggled at my old pickup would soon pitch investors using my name as reassurance. Life writes better comedies than Hollywood ever could. Saturday night, it rained, steady, unhurried. Water drummed the roof while I sat by the window reading through Evan's prototype documents he'd emailed. The system had potential. Real-time soil humidity sensors, budget dashboards, predictive watering models. Smart, thoughtful. If paired with practical insight, it could reshape small business efficiency. I remembered how, years ago, I'd built my first irrigation schedule on reputation and intuition. Now algorithms wanted a shot. That wasn't threatening. It was the evolution of diligence. By morning, I knew my answer. Monday, I joined their office meeting, a modest co-working space with motivational quotes curling at the corners. 4 staff, 1 coffee machine that hissed more than it brewed, and the high-wire optimism of youth trying to sound corporate. When Evan introduced me, the others straightened automatically. This is my father, Mr. Laird, founder of ArborWorks, city contractor, and our new sustainability advisor. A pause, smiles, handshakes, polite awe. I glanced at my son. He gave a shy nod, and in that second, I realized pride, properly matured, doesn't inflate. It steadies. Over the next months, our partnership flourished. I taught them how soil acidity and weather patterns could ruin the best budgets, how honesty beats presentation every time, and how to listen when workers speak. They taught me cloud dashboards, investor decks, and vocabulary that made maintenance sound glamorous. Out in the field, my crew teased me, promoted to tech bro now, but kept trimming as I balanced both worlds. Then came the big break. A corporate campus project bidding season, hundreds of thousands in contracts. Evan's company, with my practical input, proposed a system that combined smart irrigation sensors and on-site workforce optimization. The presentation ended with him saying, quote, "We learned real sustainability from the people who dig, not just the ones who design." When the committee announced results, 2 weeks later, they won. That evening, Evan drove straight to my place. "Dad, we got it!" he shouted before stepping out of the car. I opened the door, spatula in hand, mid-barbecue. "Knew you would." He grabbed me, hugged tight. "Couldn't have done it without you." "You could," I said, but maybe not as gracefully. He laughed. I owe you dinner. You already bought it. Lifetime Pride package, prepaid. We sat by the porch eating steak, thunder murmuring far away. He asked after my crew. I asked about his office. The talk easy now, unforced. Then he said, "You were right about Carter and Jonah. They're both running operations departments now. They still quote you sometimes." "Good men," I said. "They work for their titles instead of assuming them." Evan stirred his drink. "Guess everyone you touch ends up understanding humility." "Not everyone," I corrected softly. "Some just take longer routes." He smiled sheepishly. When the first lightning flash split the horizon, I told him a story he'd never heard. How I started Arborworks after being laid off from a construction company that said landscaping was unskilled. How I borrowed tools, slept 3 hours a night, nearly lost everything twice. He listened silently. Then, "I wish I'd known that sooner." Quote, "You weren't ready to listen sooner," I said, no judgment. "Now you are." Rain began gently. We stayed until dusk blurred the world into silver lines. Weeks turned to months, and soon the joint project appeared in magazines, local father-son duo greening Denver's tech scene. Reporters loved the symbolism, the generational bridge between soil and software. Evan handled interviews. I stood mostly in the background, chuckling when he quoted my old lines about patience and roots. And then one day, an email came from Bryce Halper. "Mr. Laird, our parent corporation is launching a mentorship grant for small business succession planning. We would like you and Evan to lead the opening seminar on intergenerational collaboration." I read it twice. The irony had officially completed its loop. At the seminar, rows of entrepreneurs listened as Evan confessed, "I once told my father to stay away from my friends because I was embarrassed. This year, those same friends called him for references." Turns out, the man I underestimated built not just gardens, but a whole community that now teaches us how to build ours. Applause erupted, not loud, but genuine. He looked toward me, eyes bright with a quiet apology long fulfilled. When the event ended, people lined up for advice. One young attendee asked me, "What's the secret to respect between generations?" I said, "Stop trying to impress. Start trying to understand. Roots don't flaunt their depth. They just hold the tree steady." Afterward, driving home, I glanced at Evan in the passenger seat. He was scrolling through messages from investors and laughing. Not with arrogance this time, with ease. "Proud of you," I said. He looked over. "You know, Dad, I'm proud of you too." That might sound ordinary, but for fathers, those 5 words weigh gold. Back at the house, the porch light flickered on automatically. The rain smell still lingered from earlier storms. Evan got out, paused before leaving. "Hey," he said. "Next weekend the team's coming by for a barbecue. You have to promise one thing." "What's that?" He smiled. "Embarrass them a little. It's tradition now." I laughed until the door creaked open and the dog started barking. Later that night, red digits on my alarm clock glowed 11 to 43 pages. I thought about how everything had cycled, from a son's discomfort with simple roots to finding power inside them. The yard outside shimmered under moonlight, each blade of grass upright and still. Work tomorrow, of course. Nature rests but never quits. Success, I realized, isn't the opposite of humility. It's built on it. Evan had learned, his friends had learned, and maybe I had too. Because sometimes we hold so tightly to patience that we forget it's also a story worth telling. People write memoirs about fortune. But me? I'd rather people remember how the landscaper who embarrassed his son taught a few young dreamers what real growth feels like. Dirty hands, upright heart. And when those young dreamers returned looking for jobs, they found more than employment. They found perspective. The world keeps spinning, roots keep deepening, and somewhere in that steady hum of lawnmowers and laptops, fathers and sons keep learning how to respect each other again.